Welcome back to Light Beyond the Ashes, the podcast where science meets spirituality and awakening becomes embodied. I'm your host, Amber Humphrey. What happens when life breaks you, only to awaken you? On this episode of Light Beyond the Ashes, Will Humphreys, entrepreneur, physical therapist, and podcast host of Temple Bound and the Willpower podcast, shares the life-altering moment that changed everything. At just 17 years old, a devastating fall off the side of a mountain left him with 21 broken bones and a near-death experience that would bring him face to face with something greater. What followed wasn't just a physical recovery, it was an awakening to a higher purpose and a higher calling. In this powerful conversation, we explore where religion meets spirituality and how different paths often lead to the same truth: love, connection, and divine guidance. Whether you call it God, the universe, or the Holy Spirit, the message is clear. We are all connected. Will opens up about how he listens to divine guidance, how it shapes his relationships, and why choosing love moment by moment is the most powerful decision that we can make. This episode will change the way you see suffering, purpose, and what it really means to be alive. We are not separate. We are not alone. We are one. If this episode reminded you of what's true, that we're all connected, that love is at the center of it all, share, like, and subscribe so we can keep spreading messages of hope and light for the world to feel and hear. Welcome back to Light Beyond the Ashes, the podcast where we talk about all things spiritual and where science meets spirituality. This week, I am so excited to introduce my good friend, Will Humphreys. We met at a conference and it was immediate connection of A, we share a similar name because Amber Humphrey, Will Humphreys. But B, I could tell right away that you had this light that was just burning so bright for everybody
Oh,
around you. So, Will, thank you so much for joining us today.
yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be a part of this. Your energy around this is so powerful. It's exciting to dive deeper into these things because these things matter so much, right? But there's no real space to talk about it.
There isn't. And that's kind of why I felt called to, dive into talking about being an awakened human, finding a connection with a higher source and how it guides you through your professional life, your personal life, and how it's completely interconnected and how all souls are connected.
Huh.
And so I'm just so excited to see what we have to dive into today.
Absolutely.
So tell the world a little bit about who you are and what you do. Normally, your normal, regular, schmegular life is how I kind of start it, and then we'll jump in.
Yeah. So I am a physical therapist. I got involved in physical therapy through a mountain climbing accident when I was 17. Fell 50 feet, broke both arms and legs, and that led me into physical therapy and entrepreneurship organically. And without any training, it became very difficult. So I started getting a lot of coaching and went from wanting to walk away from my business to building it up and selling it in 2018. Um, I have a wife of 27 years, 4 children, all boys, ages 22 to 14. And I've since then started a handful of other companies to help more of the private practice owner get
Mhm.
free from the day to day. And all of them have been doing well. But my virtual assistant company is by far the largest and what I'm known for in the area. So that's a little bit about me, but I'm also a very centered spiritual person. I would like to think that my number one calling is spiritual. And what you don't know is I actually have another podcast that is a spiritual based podcast that's specific to my religious affiliation. So
Is it really?
yeah, so I have two podcasts right now, and so the religious one actually outperforms the professional one like 4 to 1. But
Okay, so tell the world the names of both podcasts so we can follow along.
yeah, so my first podcast is Willpower Podcast. It's a leadership podcast for people who are leaders in medical spaces. The second podcast is called Temple Bound, and it's for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So that one is actually open to anyone, but a lot of the terminology will be very niche to that religious world, so it may not make
Mhm.
sense to other religious or spiritual backgrounds. But yeah, those are the two podcasts.
Wow, that's so wonderful. I didn't know you had another one. Well, thank
I
you for
do.
sharing. I'm going to go check
Yeah,
it out and follow along.
thank you.
So, I was a person who was not ever really religious. Like when I was in high school, I got confirmed and baptized. I made that choice
Sure.
for myself. I was about 15 doing Bible studies and those types of things. And I was questioning a lot of religion. I remember being like, if Jesus was a Jewish person, then why am I Christian? And I remember
Love that question. I love that your mind operates that way. One of my sons is just like that, and I think that's a model of how we should think. Honestly,
Yeah, I was like, I'm just a curious person. I felt like I kind of always pushed the limitations of what my pastor at the time was willing to talk about. And
sure.
he's like, well, let's get back to Matthew and let's just keep talking about it. I'm like, okay, let's read the Bible. And so I kind of, as I got older, I was feeling like I'm less connected to the church. How some people within the church would behave or act outside of church
Yeah,
and those five
totally.
four walls was a little off putting. So I found myself kind of connecting more with I'm a spiritual person, very loosely, and that I just like believed in energy. That was kind of how I was for a really long time. And then I had a spontaneous spiritual awakening in 2023 when my life
Mm.
was going through a huge transformation and I found God and I popped
Wow.
open. And all of my, like, I would say, connected gifts of, clairaudience, clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance, the hearing, the feeling, the seeing, the knowing, and feeling a direct connection to God, to Jesus, and just being like, wow, there's more,
Yeah.
really hit me in my soul. So, when you had your accident at 17 years old and your whole life changed, is that when you experienced a deeper connection?
Without a doubt, it was a much deeper than typical. I do feel like I realize now as an adult looking backwards that I've always had an affinity towards God and in Jesus and understanding their existence and belief structure. And regardless of the names we use in terms of like affiliations,
Mhm,
for me, just as the listeners are hearing this, the only name for me is Jesus
mhm,
and Jehovah. And so for me, I always had a great understanding of that. And when I did fall off the mountain, I laid on that mountain for 5 hours alone. And so it was a Friday the 13th in August in El Paso, Texas. It got to 106 to 8 degrees that day. And I sustained second degree burns because I was just laying there on the top of this high elevated mountain for hours and hours alone. And I didn't think I was going to die. I knew I was going to die. Like
mm,
I had both arms, both legs, multiple places. So like my left femur was open and compounded. My femur was sticking out of my leg. My right foot, the bottom part of my foot was laying on my calf. So it had broken and rotated 180 degrees. When I reached out to grab my leg, when I first impacted, I reached out to grab my leg, my hands were facing back at me. So I broke 21 bones. It was very severe. I didn't think there was a chance I was going to live pre cell phones. And during that time frame, when you know you're going to pass away, it's an interesting realization for me. Number one, I was confident. I wasn't like for sure knowing I was going to die, but I realized it was very likely I was going to die.
mhm,
And confronting your mortality at the age of 17, it was shocking to me now. It was shocking to me at the time. From now I look back, I'm super shocked thinking how like number one, I wasn't questioning where I was going to go. I wasn't questioning if there was a God. I
mm,
wasn't questioning the existence of the afterlife. That wasn't even a fear as closely and rapidly as I was going to that path. I was not afraid of that piece. I was terrified of actually the process of dying. And in
mm,
my mind, it was a lot of regret of what I was doing to my parents, to my siblings, like what this careless act of climbing without ropes to impress a girl resulted in. And so for me, that was an interesting realization that so in that sense, I wasn't really any more awake. But what did like stir a lot of my belief structure and what did wake me up is that I spent a lot of time in prayer around, just the situation. And I was begging God, like, please let me live. I'll live in a wheelchair. I don't want to do this to my parents. I realize now how careless I've been with my body, this temple you've given me. I really want the opportunity to use it to serve other people. And so during that time frame, I was reflecting upon a spiritual experience I had had just 2 months before, where I had received a blessing in my church structure. There's these things called patriarchal blessings where young men and young women are given special blessings to guide them. It's like personal scripture for them
mhm,
for the rest of their lives. And in it, it talked about me having a wife and kids. And it was like this idea that there were spirits that were waiting to be my children. And I laid there and I thought about that and I realized I wasn't gonna die. After about 2 to 3 hours, I thought, you know what? I'm not gonna die. That thought keeps coming back to mind. And so at that point, I realized that my life wasn't mine. And I think about that every August 13th. It's a renewal for me in recognizing that I should have died and didn't. And here I am now on borrowed time, so to speak, is how I view it. Grace is how I live from day to day, knowing that every second I have has been afforded to me to do something special with it, not just enjoy it, but to do something productive and useful for the Lord. So that really, so it woke me up in some ways, but it was more of like this defining purpose for me of, okay, so now that I'm here and I maybe shouldn't be, let's use this effectively to help others and really bring people to Christ in any way that I can. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was really a big pivot point for me, no question.
I mean, that sounds completely life-changing. Like, there's a very
Yeah.
distinct before and after this afternoon. And it's interesting that you had a Friday the 13th where your life changed. Friday the 13th was my awakening.
Oh,
January 13th of 23 was my huge awakening. And so there's something powerful about that energy. I don't think necessarily superstitious, just, wow,
yeah.
that's really interesting.
I
Two
will say when I
people.
repeat that story, people really grab onto that detail.
Yeah.
It's like, "Friday the 13th, what were you thinking?" It's like, "Oh, so you are superstitious." You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So
For me,
yeah,
I'm like, I am transformed by the 13th.
that's right. That's right. I was transformed. And I do believe in energy and I do believe in numbers and like the spiritual connection to even
Mhm.
colors and these things. I know a lot less about those things, but I just really can sense that. I think I've always been spiritually very sensitive, honestly.
Yeah, and whenever I was listening to you at the Growth Code conference in Miami, Florida, first time I'd ever been there, I'm listening to you tell these stories, just about how you are as, a leader and the wonderful things that you were doing in Africa, which I just love to talk about, and
Yeah.
how you told stories and the ikigai and, like, what is your purpose? Like, that stuck with me, and I
Oh,
looked
wow.
around the room, and I'm looking left and right, and by the time you were done speaking, there was tears in people's eyes, there was tears in
Oh.
my eyes, and I was like, "Who is this human? This human is impactful." Like, your light was so bright, I was like, "Ah, that's a chosen one right there. He knows what he's doing."
Yeah,
And
I am so grateful to hear you say that because my biggest worry to this day is just this idea of like, am I doing enough with what I've got? And so when I'm trying to be a tool in the Lord's hands,
Mhm,
and especially when you're on stage, it's like it's real tempting to want to be impressive, but
mhm.
not be impressed upon and like have that spirit. And so thank you. I appreciate that. I worried about that talk like you wouldn't believe. And afterwards, it was one of those where I believe the adversary kicks in is like just a constant, like right there going, oh, wow, you went too hard or well, you know what I mean? So I appreciate that because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to channel the same love, right?
Yeah, and I think everyone walked away feeling really loved, and I think it's really important for me to share this little brief story with you. So, September of 25, my husband saw you presenting at a different conference. I think it was like a billing Raintree kind of conference in Arizona, I wanna
Yeah,
say.
totally.
And I thought you guys met. He didn't meet you. He watched you. He said, "If I met Will, I would have broke down and cried in front of Will."
Oh,
And I said, "What was he talking about?" And it was the story that you were telling about your family and your son, and that he wanted to play with you, but you were really fatigued, you're really tired being, we push ourselves to the limits as leaders and as entrepreneurs and those types of things. And it was almost like this aha moment for you where everything kind of shifted of, I have to kind of maybe reprioritize things. And he saw himself in you and your story and just this beautiful moment. And I remember him texting me and calling me. He's like, "You have to meet this Will Humphreys guy. He's amazing. He's incredible." And then fast forward 3 months, I meet you and I was like, "Oh, hi. Yeah, no, I was supposed to meet you."
and it wasn't a coincidence that we met. It's such a powerful thing. I felt the same way when I met you. I was blown away by the light that you exuded, and it was different. It's very unique, and I think it comes from being spiritually awake. I love that terminology that you use because sometimes, even still, I don't think of spiritual awakening as just events, but like a process over time.
Mhm,
And I fall asleep. I fall
mhm,
spiritually asleep. I can start to worry and put fear and selfishness ahead of anything else, like anyone else. And we get to that point where when we're with the right people,
mhm,
people who represent love, who exude light themselves, it's easier for us to wake up and remain awake.
mhm.
And there's so much joy when we're in that space because we're not thinking about ourselves, we're thinking about others. Yeah.
Right, right, 100%. And like, I just remember when you were talking about, all the different things that you're in and all the different types of missions that you have,
Yeah.
everything in me was like, "Oh, this guy really believes in oneness. He really believes that we are one. And when I empower one person, I empower all people." And
Yes.
so I would just love to kind of dive into how your spirituality, your spiritual beliefs, your religious beliefs have guided you as an entrepreneur and as a leader, a thought leader, even in this space, because it really is touching a lot of people. I could feel it in the room.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So listen, I appreciate the question too, because it really does open this door of how are we all connected? The analogy I've heard before that I really like is that we're not standalone beings as much as like fingers in a glove. And
Mhm.
there's an entity and a surrounding force that connects us all in such a deep way. And, early, uh, or like 20, 30 years ago when people would start talking about this, it felt very like hippie,
Mhm.
very, that kind of thing. But as we start to really recognize just this thing called existence, it's hard to deny the fact that there is commonality in existing together. And so my core belief structure is such that, like many who are Christian based, is the idea that there's this family. Like we're the one word that I think about more than any other is family.
Mhm.
And family is such an interesting dynamic because the first thing we think of is the one we were raised in or the one we're raising. But
Mhm.
we also have to recognize the different elements of family and stages of life. There's a stage of family when after we graduate from high school, if we're lucky, we'll meet some college friends, and that's that stage in life when your friends become your family. And
Mhm.
then, later when you're raising children, you become friends with people who are raising kids at the same stage, and that becomes a family. And if you're very lucky, like I have been, and very blessed, I don't believe in luck, I believe in blessed, is that if you've been very blessed through grace, what I find in my workspace is I have been fortunate enough to see a work team become a work family.
Mhm.
And it's almost like gravity, Amber, in the sense that it's just there. Like organizational health and family dynamics are part of the fabric of the universe. And it's hard to put language to it, just like it was hard to put language to the electromagnetic spectrum before they could start identifying it through their tools. But these things that are unseen with the human eye totally exist. And when we, as a family, start to recognize these rules that govern organizational health, whether it be a team at work or a family at home or whatever that might be, we can start to work within those laws of the universe and to start creating these bonds and connections that start to deeply serve our personal growth.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, growth and gratitude and giving, the three G's, are the foundation of happiness. You
They
know,
are.
if we can focus life in those areas, that's a mindset that puts our spirit in attunement or alignment
Mm.
with our Savior. In my case, people use different language, and I
Yeah.
really do welcome people to use different language. I think religion historically has correctly been identified as a separate. It's something that separates people, but truly, like when I speak, regardless of how you agree or disagree with my particular doctrinal details, what I really believe in is this connection between all of us as sons and daughters of God in this
Mhm.
eternal family that we're going to continue to perpetuate beyond this life together, that we existed prior to coming,
Mhm.
that we will continue to exist after leaving, and through this wonderful process that we can't really understand, we are able to grow, find gratitude, and give, and in that process find joy. And I think that's one of our core elements of existing is
Oh,
joy. Yeah.
you're, like, making me tear up because I don't often get to have conversations with other, like, physical therapists, occupational therapists who, like, have this deep of a connection where you just understand,
Mm,
and it's like, once you know, you can't unknow. Once
yeah.
you remember that we are one and that, like, when I take care of myself, I take care of you. When I take care of you, I take care of
Yes.
me. And so that's why, like, my motto in this is when I heal, you heal. When you heal, I heal. And when we all heal, we rise. Is because, like,
Mm,
we're in this together. We're literally in this collective human experience together. And it's really full of contrast. It's full of duality. It's full of highs and lows and everything in between. And you don't get through it alone. Like, you need tribe, you need support, you need a connection to a higher power. And not because you're good or bad if you do or don't, but because you find peace when when you embrace it. You find love for yourself and all others. You find forgiveness for yourself and all others. It's this unified conscious field of, oh, this is beautiful. This is
yeah.
absolutely beautiful to live in this energy. I was in so much pain before. I was full of shame and guilt and heartache and stress before. And now my connection to God, I call it God. I used to say the universe because the universe felt easier. I
Yeah.
think semantics can push and pull people in and out of this space. And so I try to be very
Agreed.
open in my language with it, just like you do, because for me, it's God, but for me, it's not a sky daddy who's staring at me. Like, I don't perceive it that way. I'm like, no, it's this mother, father, Holy Spirit energy that loves me and wants
Yes.
me to be taken care of and has my best interest at heart. And for so long, I felt alone. For so long, I felt like I was just, why me? Why do bad things keep happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? And then when I woke up, it was nothing. You didn't do anything to deserve this. You came to learn. You're learning, are you not? And I'm like, yes,
Yes.
it's hard. And they're like, give my worries to me. Give your worries to me. And then when I gave my worries away, I recorded my spiritual awakening. I recorded from the minute I started waking up to now. So it's 3
Wow.
years worth of recordings and audio voice memos and everything. And in that moment, I felt an army of angels wrap their arms around me. And I had double pneumonia, I had the flu, I was so sick.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I could barely see, my hands were shaking, my heart was racing, I saw cardiology, pulmonology, I was so sick in the season. And I just remember God wrapped his arms around me and said, "You are safe." And my
Mm,
whole body relaxed, and I just wept and wept and wept, and it was the most loved I've ever felt in my entire life. Everything in a moment changed. I knew I wasn't alone, and I was like, "Okay, whatever this is, I want more of that because that felt really good, and this has felt really hard." You know?
absolutely.
Have you ever felt that divine peace wrap around you or that love?
Oh man. It's interesting because I've found it in usually the darkest of circumstances.
Mhm,
And in those moments where there's really nothing to do but turn in faith to the existence of something greater than us. And, I oftentimes think about that. I had a great friend of mine tell me there's no atheists at the Phoenix Children's Hospital where cancer is the primary diagnosis of the day. And I don't, again, and by the way, I have some very deeply spiritually powerful friends who are atheist.
mhm,
They were raised with Jesus being used as a weapon.
right,
If you don't do this, Jesus is you're not gonna wake you're gonna wake up one day, we're all gonna be in heaven, and you're gonna be stuck here in hell. And so they
mhm,
have very particular to me, what I've come to find over time and spending so many hours and days with people who are outside of my very specific, you know, religious affiliation is that most people, and I don't think that's true for all, but I think the vast majority of human beings are just trying to do the best that they can.
mhm,
And so when we come together and we talk about this thing called God, it is nice for some to hear the universe because it gives it more of just this open feel because maybe in the past it was really closed off
mhm,
and judgmental and condemning to them. But for all of us, when we go through those dark times and we're needing somebody, it's that analogy of a door without a handle. We've got to knock so that once we knock, it will open. But
mhm,
we have to knock. And unfortunately for me, it takes the real stressful, overwhelming, dare I say, like hopeless moments of life for
mhm,
me to have the faith to just reach out and knock. But when I
mhm.
do, it's if I had been wanting to knock my whole life. There's no hesitation, and that love and that embrace has something I've experienced more than once. More than once.
Yeah.
The older I get, I'm almost 50 now. So yeah, it's happened a few times for sure.
Oh, man, I definitely find in my world, we call it the dark night of the soul,
Mm,
right? It feels like that. You feel like it feels like hell on earth sometimes when you're in the despair, when you're in the, "I don't know how I can do it one more day. I'm hurting so bad. How do I take the next step forward?" Everything around me is collapsing and falling away.
mm,
But I always find that, like, life's rejection is God's protection, and I'm just being realigned to the path that I'm actually supposed to be on, and that situation or those people, places, or things were in alignment with me
mm.
or people. And so it hurts though. It hurts because we love people deeply and we don't want to lose the things that we love. But sometimes, we are there for a season. Sometimes you're there for a lesson. Sometimes it's there for a lifetime. And I think the more you awaken to the truth of who you are versus who you've been told you are, I literally called out to God on Friday the 13th. I said, "I can't do this anymore. God, help me. I give up. Help." And I just sobbed. And then next day I started hearing like the voice of God is what I feel like I
Wow.
heard. And everyone around me witnessed it for the last 3 years. I've had supernatural things. Like you talked about like the electro, whatever it's called, the
Electromagnetic spectrum. Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
spectrum of being at the what you can see with the light spectrum. It's like we can see such a little portion of it. Like dogs hear things that we can't hear, and birds feel things that we can't feel. Like they feel the earthquakes before we do. Like what about maybe there's something we don't know? What if there is more that we don't see or
Yeah.
can't explain? And my biggest my biggest, analogy is you can't see Wi-Fi, you just believe it works. You can't see energy, it's just there, but
It
you can feel it.
absolutely. It's really interesting just because like again, when we try to definitively define things is
Mhm,
where we get in trouble. I mean, I think at the end of the day we look at how things evolve over time as we just exist, and matter cannot be created nor destroyed. One of my favorite things about your podcast when you were telling me about it was this idea that it's like where spirituality and science meet. I
mhm,
think spirituality and science are one and the same.
Mhm.
I really do. I think that these things coexist for so many reasons, and people get wrapped up over the creation in the Bible versus evolution. To me, they're one and the same, and there's an intersection somewhere that will unlock at some point.
Mhm.
But there is this thing called faith.
Mhm.
I think if all things were made manifest to us, for the people who are listening, where I'm sure you get various people who are on various levels of spiritual. Some people are maybe listening to this like early stages, like, is there a God? Other people are like, I know there's a God, and I'm trying to like maximize that relationship. Wherever people are in that spectrum of like believing, is that it takes faith to exist. Period. It
Period.
takes faith to be atheist. It takes faith to be Christian. We have to believe in something,
Mhm.
for us to find some peace in our existence, even if it's the thinking that it's believing in nothing. That takes faith, given the miracles that are existing in the world, small ones like the sunrise, which
Right.
aren't so small really at all.
Yeah.
So when we look at these elements, it's interesting to see how science and faith, there's an element of faith that exists that we have. Faith is almost like following that feeling that we have in what is real and true
Mhm.
before there can be something tangible to prove it to our temporal eyes. And
Yep.
so, yeah, I mean, love, for example, we could talk all day about that as a powerful thing. One of the guests on my podcast, on the Temple Bound podcast, her name's Tanya Kimball. I just interviewed her a month ago, and she has suffered the most tragic loss of anyone I've ever heard. She lost her first son to suicide 2 years ago. And then less than a year after that, her husband and her other son were killed in an airplane crash. She lost two of her four children and her husband within a year, over 50% of her family. And when you talk to her, she's obviously carrying the burden of that grief with her. But there's a piece about her as well.
Mhm.
And it's very interesting. In that interview, she said to me, she goes, this has been obviously beyond words difficult and indescribable in terms of suffering. And I've gotten a front row to heaven. And there's something in that, right? Like there's something in that faith that goes beyond belief that starts to actually manifest connection to the other side of the veil that allows us to remember. Not,
Mhm.
waking up, I think, is less about like exposing ourselves to something new as much as just remembering what always was always
Yes.
there.
It's a remembering.
It's a remembering. And so when we go through these hardships, it's so hard to like conceptualize it to some degree. But then when you go to that extreme of suffering with Tanya, and to see how she lives her life with extreme gratitude. She's constantly posting online gratitude. She speaks at events centered in grief and suffering for people who've lost. It's amazing how the Lord can transform that suffering into something beautiful,
Yeah,
something that
absolutely.
serves, something that helps, It's truly amazing to watch.
It is, and I can't imagine as a mother and a wife going through that, like, what that loss would feel like, and this is one of those moments of it's like, "Why God? If God was real, how
Yeah.
easy it could be." How easy it could be to be like, "If God was real, why do bad things happen to good people?" Or, "Why do these things happen?" Right? And I don't know if we'll ever know why these things happen. I don't know if we know the why or if there ever is a reason. But as you walk through them, you do have 2 choices. You can be overcome and succumb to the grief yourself and never get out of bed and never continue to function as a human. Or you can alchemize this pain, this grief, and turn it into your purpose. And how Tanya is showing up as a light for other people
Mm,
and leaning on her faith and finding in some way her peace with God of, I'm going to be okay even though this happened to me. Because of you, I will be okay. Because we've all had really bad things happen to us, most of us. And I now know that the only reason I survived it in this adult portion of my life these last 3 years is because of God.
mm,
I remember being like, I remember cursing God, being like, "You're not real. You said it was going to get better. It's not better." And I fell on my knees on Easter 2024, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I'm done. And you think about the ultimate decision that you could make. And then within 30 seconds, I started hearing a very special song to me in my awakening journey is Spirit by Judah and the Lion. And
mm,
it says, "You've got spirit, I know you hear it. You've got spirit, I know you feel it. There's no give up, give up, give up in you."
mm.
And because I hadn't heard God in a few weeks, days, and I was like, everything's getting worse, right? And then I was like, God is real. I hear God again.
You know,
And this moment of faith of like, it actually is going to be okay in the depths of your despair.
yeah, I want to dive into that a little bit more, this idea of hearing God. I think so what do you think that is to hear God? Like when you say that, what does that mean to you? And what do you think it is for others?
Okay, so I, as the clairaudient person, I hear things. I hear, but it's not like my voice a lot. So sometimes it's music, right? Music will channel through. I'm like, oh, I'm hearing a song. Go listen to the words of the song, and that's one thing. That's like its
Yeah.
own little cute little version of, oh, there was a message in that. Then I feel the energies that I have felt are different energies. So I'll feel a more masculine energy, and I'll feel a more nurturing energy, a mother and a father. And in that, I also will like just channel, as in like a message will come through my mouth, a message will come through my hands. And it is stuff that I would never have said. It is not how I
Mhm.
speak at all. And a lot of times it's scripture and I don't read the Bible. And so then I'm like I just had one last night and it was essentially how loved and divinely protected we are, all of us light workers, and the work that we are doing here is activating the light within other people and to keep choosing love in every moment. Choose love. And
Mm.
it says you were made for such a time as this. And I'm like, okay, well, I know that's in the Bible, right?
Yeah.
But then it's not something that Amber the human would normally say. So it's interesting that sometimes I will get scripture like into my mind that will come out of my mouth, but it really is just a fluid stream of consciousness. I feel like I'm tapping into a higher conscious field. I think that we all have the capacity to do this. I don't know if we fully even understand what God is. I feel like it's source creator energy that has always existed, always will exist. And we are eternal beings of light. And
Mm.
so even though my life will cease to physically exist here, I will continue and return to the creator of source light love. And I am infinitely curious. And so I might live different experiences infinitely, right?
Absolutely.
And these messages, people have listened to them, they've been recorded, they've been present for them, right? There's some of my higher performing videos as these channeled
Mm.
messages of God, and they're just peaceful.
Mm.
They are like a warm hug, is what I've been told. It's like, wow, I ask people, I'm like, how do you feel after hearing this? They're like, really oddly peaceful. And so it's just for me, it's a voice that's not my voice.
Mm.
And it's not like in my mind's eye, I hear a voice. Like it's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's a really interesting, complicated thing to explain. It
'Cause
just
it's
feels like
individualized and
I'm
everyone's
tapping.
got their own I do believe people hear God in similar but different ways, and I think it's individualistic based on the individual needs of each person because we are such unique if going back to the family analogy, we're all children of a
Yes.
similar creator, of the same creator who is able to, really customize the communication channels as we need. So Amber's communication might look different than mine, might look different like anybody else. So I was just curious what that looked like for you.
Do you ever hear it? Because I've talked to pastors before and they're like, well, before I do a sermon, I will hear the voice of God. And I've talked to another one. He's a father of one of my patients here. And I was like, have you ever heard the voice of God? He's like, oh, yeah, all the time. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, it's just a divine guidance giving me information that I need to have. I'm like, okay, so I'm not the only one who's feeling
Yeah. And
this.
so people who are like, "I don't think I've ever heard that. It sounds crazy."
Yeah.
And it's I wanna, just validate the people who are like, "Well, what does that mean?" And I would just say that you've heard the voice too. You
Hmm.
know, for me to put it in my terms, for me, it's like when I hear the to me, it's the Holy Ghost, right? That's my personal take on that, is that it's a spiritual connection, spirit to spirit.
Yeah.
And so it shows up in my mind like thoughts.
Hmm.
It just shows up like thoughts. And in my case, it's my own voice in the
Hmm.
sense that, like, when I'm talking to myself in my mind, I just hear whatever voice that is. I don't even know if it's mine, but I just, I can consciously sit down and go, what do I want for breakfast this morning? Do I want Lucky Charms or that's too sugary? Like I know what that is. We just organically have that. But I believe that the connection between the spiritual, and this is not religious. I'm not an official representative of my church in this one thing. This is my personal experience on this is that the Holy Ghost, in my case, or the universe, however people frame that, is a spiritual entity, and we are spirits contained within this mortal vessel. So that's what constitutes our soul, is the body and the spirit. And so when our spirits are being communicated with, our bodies then interpret that into language.
Hmm.
And so for me, that looks like thoughts in my head. And what I've learned is that any thought that produces anything that's a product of love on any level is God. I have definitely had those moments where I feel in my body, head to toe, like a wave of love that was so indescribable that it is nothing but a spiritual experience, awakening. Like I've had those moments where I can undeniably know for myself in a way that I couldn't describe the way I would describe water, like what water tastes like. It's like that. Well, I just have this
Mhm.
feeling, but that's very few and far between. Like the vast majority of the thoughts that enter my brain, I'm starting to recognize aren't necessarily me. I think it's important for people to recognize that they are not the voice in their head. Thoughts and energies and things just come and go. We are receptacles of these different influences. We do have the cognitive capability of generating and originating thought. But just when we're in a passive state and thoughts are just flowing through us, anxieties, for example, something will pop up and then we chase that thought down, and our body can't tell the difference between
Mhm.
seeing a bear or thinking about being killed by a bear. There's no difference
Yep.
between those, right? You taught me
Mhm.
that. So when we're physiologically responding to a thought that we're chasing, well, that's not the same thing as like us producing the thought. So we are not the thoughts in we are not the voice in our head. And when those thoughts are loving, anything loving, that's God. So again, it's a spectrum for me where there are moments where I have an undeniable impression and I don't the real ones I know are when like I feel really peaceful and I'm
Mhm.
supposed to do something that makes no sense. Reach
Yep.
out to somebody, see how they're doing, and they say, "How did you know?"
Yep.
That to me is like evidence in God that his
Mhm.
existence is real and that I am progressing along that path to become more like him, right? So
Mhm.
on the other side of it, it's just like when I'm sitting there just thinking like, what else, when I think what could I do that's good and I'm originating ideas on my own, I think there's an influence from God that's helping produce
Mhm.
that as well. So for
Yep.
me, and I think for everyone I've talked to, there's definitely some similarities around the thought process, but then the way they experience that is going to be individualistic. And my biggest advice is that faith is when you have the thought, you know it's love oriented, and you take action. That to me is faith. Acting on the thought that
Yeah.
feels like love, no matter what it seems like. And even if it does, especially when it doesn't make sense. But if you're like, you know what, I feel like I'm supposed to do this, or I have this thought and I can see that would be a loving product, act on it. Because that action is what faith is. And that's what narrows the veil between
Mhm.
us and God to me. The more I am immediately acting on those impressions, the more I
Mhm.
trust that it's not just me originating it, the more I feel those impressions coming with clarity and certainty.
Yep.
And so my choices in life over time add up to almost like my sensitivity to understanding what is truly coming from God and what's coming from myself.
Oh, that was a beautiful explanation. I'm over here, like, if anyone who's just listening, I'm like, huge grin on my face, nodding my head. I'm like, yes, yes, all those things. Yes, absolutely. And so from my like, I'm such a nerd and I love to learn. I love neuroscience. I love learning about the quantum field and quantum physics and the double slit theory, and where you put your attention
Mm,
is where your energy flows. Like you'll see, the observer effect is essentially there's like wave particles in a wave, and where you put your attention, the particle will form as a particle and go through one of the slits, depending upon if a human or even the computer is observing, which is just bananas to think about how
bananas.
your actual attention and energy can shift everything depending on where you're putting your energy. And so when you say that, like, yes, I in my spiritual world, how we talk about it is we have a higher self. So my higher
Mm,
self sounds different to me. I experience it differently than God as well. But
mm,
the idea that listening to the thought of love and taking action is faith. I have taken the biggest trust falls that scare the crap out of me. I'm like, "No, no, I cannot do that." Like, "No, that sounds very scary." And then I hear this voice, "You're safe. You can and you will. Just trust me." And I'm like,
mm.
"Ah!" And then I do, and then it benefits me, and it all works out for my highest and greatest good and the highest and greatest good of other people around me. And there's this peace about that of
Yeah.
when I just lead with love and I just listen to that voice of love, everything will work out. Like, what could go wrong if I just listen to a voice of love? And so I do think that when you said that you think about a person and then are you like, I have to call this person, something's going on. Like, I was just talking about you. I think that's the observer effect happening in real time, is where two consciousnesses are like thinking about
Yeah,
the
I
same thing.
agree.
And then you manifest each other and you're like, oh, I haven't seen you in 20 years. I just talked about you last night. That happened a month ago. And I was like, I watched it happen. I was like, well, instant manifestation there. You talked about this guy from 20 years ago last night. First time in 20 years.
Not a
Ends up
coincidence.
at the same restaurant that we're at. And I'm like, hi, she manifested you.
I love your description of that because it's so true. I think if we're in this position where we really believe, first of all, I want to encourage people to challenge this notion that we are
Mhm,
brothers and sisters. I think if we really are brothers and sisters, that means we're children of the creator
mhm.
or creators, whatever. It's like for us to be in that state of like, a seed to an oak tree, but
Yeah.
we still have the DNA of the
Mhm,
entity that created everything that exists. That part I know sounds crazy, but it's manifest in these little moments, these miracle moments, these tender mercies, if you will,
mhm.
where we experience like our heart's desire for something and someone else feels it and then we connect. That I think you're exactly right. I think that's the proof, the intangible proof that we get to spiritually experience in this mortal journey of all these things being real. And, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think we're fractals of the whole, right? If you can picture a mosaic, a beautiful mosaic, no two pieces are the same. We're all beautifully made. We all have uniqueness to us, different shapes, different colors, different sizes. But then you put it together and you have this beautiful stained glass. And it's like, wow, I can't imagine not ever having this artwork, right? Like God is looking at each of us being like, oh my God, look at this
Mm,
creation. It's so beautiful. It's so worthy. It's so enough. It might not know it's enough and worthy yet, but it is. And one day I'll
yeah,
show it. And, I pray that people who find this podcast or are listening right now know that as you continue to walk through, whether it be an awakening journey, if you're listening to the podcast, you're probably curious. Like if you've made
yeah,
it this far, you're curious. Um, you are so worthy as you are. And I think a lot of us strive to be perfect. And I'm like, no, God made you perfectly her image, its image. And you are beautiful. You're a soul that's worth living. You're a soul that is worth purpose. You're a soul that is worth being here and being invested in and being loved. But so often we're programmed by those early voices in our lives, our families, our, caregivers. And that's the voice you hear. I'm
yes,
not worthy. There's shame here. There's guilt here. There's rumination about past decisions. And it makes you be in this lower vibrational state of what I feel like is hell on earth, where you don't have self worth. You don't believe in yourself. And, Jesus says the kingdom of heaven lives within you. And I feel that. Like, I feel more embodied into like a heavenly experience, despite my external circumstances not being where I want them yet.
yeah,
The internal feel that I have and how the children that I work with respond to me, I know they see heaven in me. I know they see God in my eyes because these autistic children who have really poor eye contact
yeah,
look at me and they see into my soul and I'm seeing into their soul. And there's a lot of heart connection. They put their forehead to my forehead. They
wow,
lean into me. They want to touch my face. And I'm like, oh, I know you feel God. I know you feel God because I feel God in you. And so being in the pediatric therapy space has really been a huge part of my evolution too as a human because the kids remind me of the purity of what all souls are.
yeah. That is
Have you
so
experienced
beautiful.
that too?
I think where you guys live is the front lines
Mhm,
of heaven. When you guys are working in the pediatric space and you're dealing with children to begin with, and then you're working with children who are struggling in
mhm.
various capacities, I don't think there's a more in tune spirit on the planet than a
Mhm.
child who's going through those challenges. And for you guys to be front lines, I'm sure have felt just incredible connection
Yeah.
to God.
Oh, yeah. I had a mom the other day, it was like, why is he doing that? Like, he doesn't allow anyone to touch him. And I was
Yeah,
like, oh, I'm sending love to him and he feels my love and he climbs up in my lap and he looks at me. And then his mom's like, he won't let me do vagus nerve stimulation. She's like,
yeah,
he won't let me clean his ears. And I said, well, do you mind if I touch him? And so I'm gently like in my mind's eye and my thoughts, because there's the telepathy tapes is a whole podcast that you should totally check out where it talks
okay.
about autistics being telepathic. Oh my God, it's life changing. And I'm like, this is nuts. And I've experienced some interesting things here with my autistic patients. But I'm
Ah,
sending I love you thoughts to this child who I don't know, who I never met during an evaluation. And I'm like, you're safe. And I put my hands on his head, some deep pressure, and I go to his ears and I'm rubbing his ears and I'm doing vagus nerve stimulation. And all of a sudden he literally like leans into me. He's poking my cheeks and I let my hands go. He grabs my hands. He puts them back on his ears. His mom is like, can I film this? Cause no one's going to believe me. And I was like, sure. And so it's just completely a whole new experience when you're like, I treat every single person that I meet with love, and I feel it back,
yeah.
and that's that. It just feels like God. It just feels like God and like flowing through you.
Yeah, and I know that again, I think back in the day that was seen as very hippie, but I think when we recognize that God says it in the Bible, God is love. God, that He is that's love. That's literally what it is. And so when we get trapped up in our language
Mhm.
around, different ways of expressing it. Again, people have various experiences with religion or spirituality or different terms, and like you said, that language can pull you in and out of that state.
Mhm.
But what we're just talking about, the core is love.
Mhm.
Love, family, that's where it's at. And
Mhm.
it's just one of those things that I think that everyone is capable of doing. I really believe some people have spiritual gifts in a way that are more sensitive than others, but I do believe everyone is meant to experience it on this earth. They just have to want to. The one thing I think that is 100% ours is our agency. I think that's the only thing that's truly us. Our
Yes.
agency. We have to choose. Like in my belief structure, this life is to receive a body so that we can experience joy. You can't experience joy without experiencing sorrow and pain. So
Mhm.
we were actually here for all of it. Like we
Mm.
signed up for all of it, knowing that the only way to experience those things was to go through some difficulties and to be tested. For us, the testing isn't about this heaven and hell thing where it's like, and this is just me talking about my belief structure, because I believe heaven and hell is what you said, Amber. I think that's right here. I think that's
Mhm.
happening right now. I
Mhm.
think that is people have lived in this life and said this I couldn't imagine a worse hell than some of the things they go through. Just like they say they can have experiences of heaven, and sometimes those things happen on two sides of one coin. Like it's really
Mhm.
fascinating how that piece works. But at the end of the day, we are when I say tested, I don't mean like exam fail pass. I mean
Right.
tested meaning physically strengthened, emotionally strengthened, spiritually, like climbing a mountain. We're here to climb that mountain, but this time the rock is God, and we are secured through our faith. So we are going to fall, but there's that carabiner and that lock in that we have,
Mhm.
and it's in the falling that we gain the muscle and the strength. So that's what I mean by tested is that we're here to be strengthened. We are here to develop, to
Yep.
become more powerful entities. We can't do that without gravity. We can't do that without pain. We can't. Sadly, that's just part of the process. In physical therapy, we know it better than anyone. Someone comes in with a knee replacement and they want to learn to walk better than they've ever walked again. It's been 20 years since they've been able to walk normal. That rehab is painful. We have to stretch the tissues. We have to contract muscle that hasn't been contracted for years. All
Mhm.
of it is very uncomfortable and downright people will suffer from time to time. But when someone comes in 6 months later running in pain free, and they have not just the physical capability, but the emotional appreciation for what they can do now, they are living at a higher vibration. They're living
Mhm.
at a higher state of mind. They are able to impact people in a way that they weren't able to do, or really they were able to, but like struggled in seeing how they could prior, right?
Mhm.
And so that's just us. For me, I think everything temporally has a spiritual counterpart. And so as we go through life and we go through these challenges and things, we are here to be strengthened. We are here to be,
Mhm.
to grow and to develop. And ultimately those moments, if we can use our agency to anchor to God and really lean on that spiritual connection and just trust that it's there, like you have trusted over and over again. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, you're high on that mountain now because you're not going to fall.
No, I
You'll
feel
slip.
safe.
Yeah, you're safe. Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing is like agency and safety are like the key pillars of my clinic, Open Door Pediatric Therapy. I just gave a presentation and training to my team on trauma informed care. And then when you
Wow.
said agency, I was like, well, we just gave a presentation on agency. And I'm watching my team see immediate improvements when you give agency. And that's like a pillar also of what I'm creating somatic engineering, where we're learning what's happening within the nervous system and how to target it.
Mm,
And, with Tony, the TikTok history teacher, we're just really identifying the importance of agency, having a choice. I can choose to heal or I can
mm.
choose not to heal. I can choose to believe. I can choose not to believe. It's your choice. It's choose your own adventure.
Yes.
Every human has free will. But when you take away free will, when you impede agency, other people, external environmental factors, people, places, and things, when that impedes agency, it impedes your felt sense of safety, which then leads to dysregulation, which is what I work on as well. And so, when you can restore agency, restore remembering, restore oneness, say I love you and share it and it's felt by others, you watch as kids, people, humans feel safer. And I started doing the caregiver healing program with the parents of these kids because the families are all stressed out. And I'm like, hey, mom, you have a choice too. You can choose to love yourself the way you love your kids.
Mm,
You can choose to turn that focus inwards. You can choose to heal yourself as much as you're invested in healing your child. Wait, what? That's a choice? Yeah,
mm.
that's totally a choice. Who's asking you? Is no one asking you? Hi, my name's Amber. I'd like to help you. And I'm watching family systems improve because, like you said, like we're all interconnected, but sometimes we focus so much on one piece of the puzzle and not the whole picture.
Uh,
And I'm like, if you can regulate and make everyone in a family unit feel safe, everyone in a company feel safe, if you can be regulated as a leader and make your team feel safe, you're going to watch magic happen because
amen.
people are going to want to come to work. People are going to want to be at the dinner table. People are going to want to have those tough conversations because they know they're safe to have them. Agency and safety are paramount to every dynamic, to every relationship, and to healing as a whole. That's like my lived experience. Have you kind of felt that too?
100%. I'm going to remember that forever. I love the idea of agency and safety. I think when you raise teenagers, that becomes very evident,
Mhm,
and you have to just respect. I've had members in my own family say that they don't want to believe the same faith that I do.
mhm,
And my response was like, I'm proud of you for being honest. I'm proud of you for and ironically, they ended up deciding to stay or whatever. But like at that point, it's like we can't try to exert we can't ever try to overcome other people's agency. Now
mhm.
that's not the same as like safe. We do the only time I will disagree with that one comment I just made is when it comes to other people's safety.
Yeah.
Like if I have a teenager and they're like, no, I can drink and drive. It's like, no, you
No,
can't. No,
there's
I don't care.
limitations.
Yeah, yeah, and if by the way, if you ever decide that your agency is gonna impede upon others in a dangerous way like that, I don't care if you're 30. I'll be a
Yeah.
60-year-old going like, "Knock that off. That's ridiculous. I love
Yes.
you." And I might try to find the most loving approach, but, love doesn't always look like an arm around the shoulder and a
Mhm,
hug and "I believe in you." Sometimes, like the viral clip that's going around with March Madness, have you seen this?
mhm. Tell
They
me.
just during March Madness with, I'm not even into sports, which is so funny why I'm bringing it up, but there's this girl that, it's in the girls' league. It's one of the coaches. She's talking to one of her players, and they've got someone zoomed in and recorded it, and she is singeing her eyebrows. She's like, you need to understand that everything, I mean, everything comes down to this moment. You are out there, and I want you to know I believe in you, but you have to want it more than I mean, she's just like, you got to go out there. And she's just like screaming in this girl face to face, but you can tell that she's loved. You can tell it's not coming. So it's kind of like that child that you wanted to put your hands on his ears.
Mhm,
It's like we can do some really intense things when we're coming from love. And
mhm,
I think of Jesus cleansing the temple, right? Like there's I mean, most of the time love looks like persuasion, right? Even with kids, I'm a big fan of this, like persuading, setting boundaries in place, but using persuasion to like educate, communicate the why, knowing
mhm,
that sometimes they're just going to be kids and
mhm,
those boundaries need to be there. But when it comes to like raising young adults, man, that shifts dramatically. And the way that we parent that coming from a place of like, hey man, here's the path. Here's our progressive path. I'm your parent. And sometimes I can be your coach. Our ultimate goal is friendship when you're fully blown. But for now, we've got to have this place over here where we're working through it. But in order to do that, like you have to feel safe. And we in our homes like mine where you grew up getting yelled at, it's a knee
mhm,
jerk to yell at your kids. It's the quickest way to destroy safety. And I don't want
mhm.
anyone to hear that to be like beating themselves up on that. Just know that like if I can overcome my temper, you can too. It's
Yeah,
like it's part of that, like, I love what you said earlier, Amber, like, you heal, I heal, you heal, and when we all
we all
heal,
need
we
to.
rise. It's like, yeah, that phrase of a hurt people, but heal people heal the world, like, it's
Mhm.
okay, even maybe you're just providing a little gravity to your child's rock climbing experience, but maybe it's time to show it a little bit differently, but yeah,
Oh,
I really
yeah.
love what you said.
Yeah, and I thank you, and I really do think, like, as someone who grew up in a very yelly household too,
Uh,
like, you don't realize how much that shuts down your own, like, voice, and
yeah.
energetically and, like, Reiki, we call it your throat chakra, right? Like, it feels like it's blocked, and maybe you deal with a lot of throat issues as an adult. For me, I had to clear my throat so much as I was filming this podcast over and over and over again. Every episode, my throat would clear less and less, and now I haven't cleared it at all. And I just was like, I was
Wow.
so scared of speaking my truth. I was so scared of, and I was never like physically abused, but emotionally, it was a really challenging
Yeah.
upbringing. 2 households, 4 parents, addiction. It was not easy. Anger management issues. And then I tell people now, I'm like, "Would you ever believe I was really angry? Would you ever believe that I would say the meanest thing in a fight to end it? Would you ever believe that I would throw things when I was a teenager because that's what I did because I would see other people do this?
Mhm.
Slamming doors, like all those really unhealed things." Well, our children model what they see.
Yeah.
And now, like as a healing person, I model peace as much as I can. I mess up. I'm not perfect. We're all still learning. But I've watched my children become more peaceful, and I've watched my children
Mm.
watch how conflict resolution looks because they've had to see me do so much of it. I've seen my children talk about forgiveness. My daughter last night was like, "Mommy, we need to forgive this person because you'll feel better." And I
Wow.
was like, "You're 7. You're 7."
They're
Like
so spiritually powerful. Like, there's no like, this that's the ironic thing is that we come
Mhm,
spiritually, like I love what you said earlier about worthiness. I love to tell people this belief that I know exists, which is that what makes us worthy is our existence,
mhm.
period, full
Period. Full
stop.
stop.
Yeah.
Jinx.
We don't have to do anything. We don't have to like, you know what I mean? Like we're valuable because we exist. That's it.
You're valuable
And
because
we are loved because we exist by the universe, by God, you know?
Oh, Will, I love this conversation so much. How do your beliefs of love and oneness and just like your own spiritual religious beliefs, how does this like impact your day-to-day life as a leader and a business owner? Because I feel like some people feel like you have to be really business, you have to be really
Yeah.
strict or stern. And like how do you have both where you're not being taken advantage of, but you're being soft-hearted?
That was something I struggled with for a long time being taken advantage of. I'm very trusting by nature, and I don't think that's necessarily like that's not like a backhanded way of saying how good I am. I
Hmm.
mean, there's this gullibleness about me.
Yeah.
And so for me, having people just take advantage is something that was me being tied to the rock and falling a number of times
Hmm.
until I learned how to get my grip. So for me, what I've learned is this, is that with great spiritual awakening comes great responsibility. It's kind of like that superhero phrase,
Hmm.
you know, Spider-Man every time it's like with great power comes great responsibility. Well, with great clarity comes great responsibility. And so
Hmm.
for me, as you saw on stage, what I've learned that helps me the most is channeling this towards something that I believe would be the greatest good that I could produce. And so anything I do, whether it's professional, leads towards family. And what I mean specifically is, as you know, I go to Africa every year. We have these orphanages that we've built a foundation that we just launched this month called the Light on a Hill Foundation. And
Oh,
so all of my companies now funnel financially into that. And my wife is on the board of another charity, which the money for that charity will come through the foundation, but it will also fund, you know, the pediatric supplies that we're bringing to
mhm,
Africa. It's amazing how having a big vision, being really clear on a product that is greatly filled with love and purpose helps me not be taken advantage of. Because when I'm out there with my team and I see someone cutting corners, like I have someone right now, we're having a come to Jesus moment on Friday.
good luck. I believe it
Tomorrow.
in you.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I can't wait for those conversations now because it's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, man, you know who this is for. It's not for me. We're
Mhm,
not doing this to make money. We're making money to help these kids." It
mhm,
brings that coach in me out, and it forces because it's not when it's about me, I am always weak every
mhm.
time.
God, I know.
When it's about kids in Africa who are struggling, who have
Yes.
not who are like on the biggest mountains with the littlest rope,
Mhm,
I have to do something about it. Once it's seen, it's unseen. You can't unsee it, like you said earlier.
mhm,
So, like, it gives me that courage to be like, no, we're doing this. Cause, like, I'll tell people very specifically, I want to make as much money as humanly possible. Like,
mhm,
I am not shy about that
mhm,
whatsoever.
mhm,
It's not because I want a multiple homes and Porsches, which, by the way, I don't even judge people who have multiple homes and Porsches. Like, that's literally who cares.
mhm,
I just know because I don't know their world. I don't know what that represents energy wise. I believe that money is something we can always go make a lot more of. It's our scarcity mindset that keeps us in these little like budgeted retire at
mhm.
65 mentalities. I believe we're in infinite we are infinite beings that can create infinite results. So I can go make as much temporal money. Who
Yep.
cares? But the reason I want it is because I've got a purpose to help kids. And so when I go over there, and this is what's so funny, again, this all sounds like I'm a great guy, but it's not. It's
You are,
very
but
selfish. Well, I'm as great as anyone else. I'm not
yeah.
worse or better than any other human being on this
No.
planet, right? Like my choices, though, what I'm proud of is the fact that when I go over there, yeah, there's an impact. But Amber, I need them more than they need me. When I get on the plane coming back every single time, I don't have a single problem in the world because I've seen people who have so much less, who struggle so much more, find
Mhm,
so much more happiness because they're so close to God that
mhm,
when I get on that plane, everything is washed away. I have so much. Do you want to talk about a spiritual awakening? It's the plane ride home every single year. Brand new spiritual awakening. And it's not like a tongue in cheek thing. I feel peace and love because I'm awake. I
yep.
can see and I can feel that everything is going to be okay. It's all
Oh,
going to be all right. Right. Like it's just that wonderful assurance that
yeah.
that parents,
Mhm,
male, female, my belief as well, are right there behind the curtain
mhm,
cheering us on, saying, "You can do it." And even
mhm,
when we sin and we do stupid things and we do yell or whatever we do, maybe worse than that, maybe we have addictions. It doesn't matter. Doesn't mean we're less lovable. And there's a huge opportunity to get back up like a child learning to walk. The parent doesn't yell at the kid when he falls or she falls. You can do it. That's what's coming on the other side. And I think that's
mhm.
where religion's got it wrong
Yeah.
historically, but it's nothing but like, you can do this, get back up and try again. So yeah, that's how I've overcome that being taken advantage of, is by giving that love a great focus for a goal and purpose, believing that like, if I just commit that I'm going to do something about it, people will join me.
Mhm.
You go fast, go alone, go far, go together. Like if I believe we're going to do this all together, and then it becomes this one of many. And that's all I ever want to be, is one of many of people that I get to be inspired by, like Amber. You know what I mean? It's
Oh,
just the coolest
oh,
thing.
yeah. Oh, well, I remember when you got done with your presentation, we talked about Africa, I made a beeline for you. I was like,
You
how
did.
I don't know if I was the first person or not, but I was, like, crying, and I was like, "Hi, Will. I'm Amber, again, from dinner last night. I would really like to go to Africa with you because I know that I can help, and I want to be a servant of God. How can we do this?" And I was like, and then before I knew it, by the morning, there was a sign-up sheet, and now there's a Facebook group, and now there's all these people, so if you're interested, like, I will make sure we'll share whatever we need to share
Absolutely.
about
I'm
Africa for you because I am so mission focused right now, and it's
Yeah.
not like I don't know how to describe it. My mission is to help people heal, help people feel safe. I would do this for free.
Yeah.
Like on my downtime, not at the clinic, I am doing this for free for the last 3 years. I help regulate my friends' nervous systems, people who are on TikTok who message me. I have not charged a single soul for the things that I do, even though it's highly effective and I have a master's degree in a business. I love people so much. I've wanted to be a therapist since I was 7 years old. I wanted to be a PT first, didn't know about OT. My mom was getting PT with back pain. And I was like, "Mom, I'm gonna be a physical therapist." And she was like, "Okay." And I never looked back. I was like, "I need to be a therapist," and I am, and it's the greatest gift I've ever been given of having this purpose-driven life. And I'm like, "I know what to do with my hands. I have a really smart brain. I can put all this together. I can create something that's valuable." And then teaching and being on stages and talking about it. It's just I was so inspired by you. It's like, yes, I wanna do that, and I wanna do it big because I know that God is putting me in the rooms I need to be in, and I'm just listening because it's a loving message. It's a loving thought that came in my head. And I'm like, "Yep, I'm gonna go to Africa with you."
And you will. We've hired, the way that's progressed is that because we've had such a great response for that, is I've actually hired an event planning company to put the Africa trip together for me because it was becoming like a whole new
Yeah.
company. So I put money from my company into a company that organizes trips. So that's coming, lots of details. And I just want to comment on that thing that you just said, Amber, because that's the whole thing. Like, I really do believe that as we start to believe in God and
Uh,
believe in love and see that change in our lives, and whether we call it a spiritual awakening or we just call it like getting ready to make a difference, whatever that is for us, we
mhm.
become a light. And it's in Matthew, one of my favorite scriptures, that talks about how ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Just like men don't light a candlestick and put it in a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light into all the house. We all have houses that we're lighting, our own homes, others, and your light is so bright that,
Thank
like,
you.
that calling that you have to be on that's the whole point of a light on a hill foundation, is that if we have that light and we are aware of it, it's not about us. Your light, Amber, is not. I know you know it's not about you, but the reason I say it is because I know the human in me. Every time I take a stage, still wants to be liked. I'll never outrun it. The insecurities of like, I want to be seen as a great speaker. I want to be seen as someone who's important. And when you say those things back, it's one part validating and one part like me going, oh no, I hope that doesn't feed in that part of me that sucks. Who's not, sorry, not sucks. is less effective,
Yeah.
called the ego of like,
Mhm.
what is it? Because at the end of the day, it's not about me either, but it's okay that like, so like the reason I say that's because I just want to say to you in front of the audience and whoever's listening, who's ever feeling called to like, maybe I should go on stage, or maybe I should write a book, or maybe I should, maybe you don't have any of those desires, but maybe it's just a matter of like wanting to make a difference in one child's life. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Be that light. Do not hold back. It's not about you. It's never been about us. It's always about them. It's always about him and her. It's always about all these things. And if we can encourage each other, like I know you're supposed to with this podcast and on stages, yeah, man. Like I can only imagine that the millions of people that are out there in degrees of darkness who are waiting for that light.
Yeah.
Because it's again, it's the not the light in us isn't ours. It's the savior,
It's
right?
not. I always
Yeah.
say this is not about me. Like every person who's in my very close circle, they know what my visions are. They know what
Good.
I've been given as a here's what you are going to do. And I'm like, that sounds terrifying. And then they're like, you're gonna do a podcast. I was like, oh, am I? I don't know if I'm ready for that. And then here I am, like 20 episodes in. And then they say, okay, or God says, like, you're going to be a messenger of hope. You're going to help
Yeah.
people have hope again. And I was like, wow, that's a really big calling. And at the beginning, it feels like this ego driven thing of like, Amber is this. I'm like, oh, no, no. Amber is an eternal being of light that is the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
ego, and the eternal being of light, the sovereignty, the free soul who lives within me, who's of creator source love. That entity, that thing is called
Yes.
forward to shine the light for others to feel. And like an alternating current, when I light, it's like matchsticks. Like I have my
Ooh,
matchstick and they're all boom, 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 boom. And before you know it, the whole matchbook is lit up.
love
That's
that.
what we are. That's what we're
Yes.
being called to do. And that's what this podcast is for, is to help people who are on different spectrums of, like you said, highly religious, not so sure, atheist, spiritual, questioning things, just really sad and lonely and depressed and anxious and want to heal. That's what this podcast is for of, hey, there's somebody on this podcast for everybody.
Yes.
And you're going to connect or resonate with somebody. And then when you do, go find that person out so you can learn more about you and how you engage with this connectedness as energy, because it's like it's choose your own adventure. Which one resonates with you, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, and at the end of the day, it just comes back to love and us trying to grow and amplify that. I'm proud of you for not wanting to, like, feeling called to the podcast and resisting it. See, I lead into those things because I'm a middle child that never got enough attention, so there's the human in me that literally loves attention.
Yeah.
Being transparent, like, there's that part of me that's like, feels good," but he uses all of us. Some of us are like my wife, she's very meek, very quiet, very humble, and the power that she has is infinite. You just aren't going to have it attached to her. You won't see it because she's behind the scenes, right? Those behind the scenes heroes are just as powerful.
Just as powerful,
Yeah.
just as powerful. Oh, Will, this has been the most fun
Yeah.
conversation.
Thank you,
Thank
Amber.
you
This has been
so
so great. I
much.
really appreciate you inviting me on the show.
Oh, I'm so happy. I always end with the one more question about what advice would you give to somebody who is newly awakened or awakening or
Mm.
going through some really challenging things and they're kind of just like, what is all of this and how do I survive it?
Yes. To take action on any good thought. Take action. And well, there's two pieces of advice. The first is to take action on any good thought, trusting, like just go for it. And the second piece is it's going to be great.
Mm.
It's gonna
If
be
it
great. It's all gonna work out. Lots of grace for ourselves of who we've been, who we're trying to be, who we could be. Lots of grace. We've got infinite time. We're infinite beings. We're gonna get there. It's not about it's not the destination, it's that journey. So just,
Yes.
taking action, realizing there's really nowhere to go, and let's take action. That kind of thing.
That's perfect. Enjoy the infinite now moment. It's all there ever is, all there
That's
ever will
right.
be.
That's right.
Ah, this was fun. Thank you so much.
Yay. Thank
Will.
you, Amber.
Guys, if you have made it this far and you continue to show up and support this podcast, A, it means so much to me. And B, I pray that you're learning something and you're finding yourself in one of our guests and being like, oh, okay, that landed with me. I can grow in this space. Just know you're not alone. We're all in this together. And when I heal, you heal. And when you heal, I heal. And when we all heal, we rise and we create a better earth together. We're in this together. Keep going. We've got this.